Chapter 4. The butler did it, or did he? The Shadowport police station looked like what would happen if brutalist architecture had a bad day and decided to take it out on everyone else. Detective Raven Darkblade sat in the interrogation room, which was actually just a conference room with delusions of grandeur, staring at Bob the butler across a table that had seen better decades. "So, Bob," Raven said, leaning back in his chair with the confidence of someone who definitely knew what they were doing, "tell me about yourself." Bob shifted nervously, his butler uniform somehow still impeccable, despite the fact he'd been at a crime scene all morning. "Not much to tell, sir. I've been butlering for 15 years. Before that, I was a circus performer. Before that, I was born." "A circus performer?" Raven's eyebrows did their independent dance again. "What was your act?" "I trained butterflies." The silence that followed was so thick you could spread it on toast. Chief O'Grady, who was watching from behind the two-way mirror that everyone knew was a two-way mirror, probably choked on her coffee. "You trained butterflies," Raven repeated slowly, like he was tasting the words and finding them suspicious. "Yes, sir. Beautiful creatures. Butterflies. People think they just flutter about randomly, but they're actually quite intelligent. For insects, which isn't saying much, but still." Raven pulled out his notepad, which had mysteriously transformed from a Denny's napkin to actual paper. Character growth. "And you didn't think to mention this earlier? When we were investigating butterfly-related murders." Bob looked genuinely confused, which was either excellent acting or genuine confusion. With butlers, you could never tell. "I didn't think it was relevant, sir. That was 20 years ago. I haven't trained a butterfly since the incident." "The incident?" "We don't talk about the incident." This was the second thing they didn't talk about today, and Raven was starting to worry they'd run out of things they could talk about. Meanwhile, at the Mystique Mansion, Jane was pacing her living room like a caged tiger that had taken up interior decorating. Jackson Steele stood guard, looking professional in the way that mannequins look professional. All appearance, no substance. "I just don't understand," Jane said for the 15th time. "Why would anyone want to kill Sebastian and Richard over butterflies? It's like killing someone over a stamp collection. Actually, that happened to my uncle, but that's different." "Don't worry, ma'am," Jackson said, his jaw so square you could use it to check if a picture frame was level. "I won't let anything happen to you. I'm the department's best officer." "I thought Raven Darkblade was the best," Jane asked innocently. "He's not even really a detective." Jackson exploded like a piñata full of resentment. "He's just some guy with a trench coat and a tragic backstory who shows up at crime scenes." Before Jane could respond, the doorbell rang with the ominous tone of a doorbell that knew something bad was about to happen. They looked at each other with the kind of look that, in better writing, would convey volumes, but here just conveyed that they were looking at each other. Jackson drew his gun, which seemed excessive for answering a door, but these were excessive times. "Stay behind me," he commanded commandingly. He opened the door to reveal a small woman in a sensible pantsuit carrying a briefcase that screamed, "I mean business," in briefcase language. She had the kind of face that was hard to describe, so I won't. Miss Mystique, the woman said in a voice like honey mixed with arsenic. I'm Martha Chambers. I believe we need to talk about butterflies. Jane fainted again, because apparently that was her thing now. Back at the police station, Raven was having a breakthrough, which felt like a regular break, but with more importance attached. Bob, he said suddenly, standing up so fast his chair fell over dramatically. The circus you worked for, was it Magnifico's Traveling Wonders? Bob's face went pale, which was impressive since he was already British pale. How did you know? Because Magnifico's Traveling Wonders was shut down 20 years ago for illegally importing exotic animals, including ... Raven paused for effect, and the effect was affected. Rare butterflies. It wasn't like that, Bob protested, his accent sliding from British to Australian to possibly Canadian. Mr. Magnifico, he told us the permits were in order. I was just a butterfly trainer. I didn't know about the smuggling. But you knew Sebastian Montenegro Winchester. Bob deflated like a souffle in an earthquake. He was one of our suppliers. Young man back then, just starting his import business. When the circus folded, he offered me a job, said he needed someone who understood butterflies. The pieces were falling into place like dominoes that had been set up by someone who was really bad at dominoes. Raven's phone rang with the urgency of a phone that knew it was in a badly written detective story. Darkblade, he answered, forgetting to check who was calling because that's what professionals do. Raven! Jackson's voice screamed through the phone like a banshee with a megaphone. M. Chambers is here, at the mansion, and she's a woman. A woman? Raven gasped, as if women couldn't be criminals, which was sexist and also stupid. I'll be right there. Don't let her leave. Too late. She's drinking tea with Jane. They're discussing butterfly conservation. Raven hung up and looked at Bob with the intensity of 1,000 suns, which would have killed them both. But this was fiction, so it was fine. You're coming with me. Time to face your past. But I don't want to face my past, Bob whined. It has butterflies in it. The drive to the mansion broke several traffic laws and at least one law of physics. Raven's car, which had never been described before and wouldn't be now, screeched to a halt in the driveway like a bat out of hell that had taken driving lessons. Inside, they found Jane very much not murdered, sitting across from Martha Chambers and having what appeared to be a civilized conversation. Jackson stood in the corner, his gun still drawn, pointing it vaguely at the teapot. Ah, Mr. Darkblade, Martha Chambers said, turning to face him. She looked exactly like someone named Martha Chambers would look, which is to say she looked like she could be anyone's accountant or possibly their assassin. I've been expecting you. You have? Raven said, trying to sound like he'd been expecting her to expect him. Of course, when you start investigating the butterfly trade in Shadowport, eventually all roads lead to me. She smiled like a shark that had gone to finishing school. I'm the regional director of the Butterfly Conservation Society. Everyone stared at her. The illegal Butterfly Conservation Society, Raven ventured hopefully. No, the completely legal one. We've been trying to shut down Sebastian and Richard's smuggling operation for years. They were destroying endangered butterfly populations for profit. The plot twist hit like a ton of bricks made of smaller, more confusing bricks. But the threatening note, Jane stammered, her fainting couch calling to her. Martha sighed the sigh of someone who had to explain things to idiots professionally. What threatening note? I sent a strongly worded letter about legal action. I even used letterhead. Bob stepped forward, and something in his expression had changed. Gone was the bumbling butler. In his place stood a man with a dark secret, which was about to become a slightly lighter secret. "It was me," he said simply. "I wrote the note. I killed them both." The room gasped in unison, which was impressive coordination for an unrehearsed gasp. "But why?" Raven asked, his detective skills finally clicking into place like a seatbelt that had been stuck. "They were going to expose my past," Bob said, his accent finally settling on something vaguely European. "When the circus folded, I didn't just train butterflies. I helped smuggle them. Sebastian and Richard knew. They were blackmailing me, threatening to reveal everything unless I helped them expand their operation." "So you killed them with a ceremonial Malaysian dagger?" Jane asked, apparently over her fainting phase. "It seemed poetic," Bob shrugged. "Sebastian loved that stupid knife collection more than he loved the butterflies. I wanted him to die by something he cherished." "And Richard?" "Wrong place, wrong time. He came here demanding to know who killed Sebastian. Figured it was me immediately. Smart man. Shame about the whole murder thing." Chief O'Grady, who had apparently been there the whole time, stepped forward with handcuffs that gleamed with the satisfaction of a job about to be done. "Bob, what's your last name anyway?" "Butterworth," Bob said with a completely straight face. Everyone groaned. As Bob Butterworth was led away, still maintaining perfect posture despite the handcuffs, Raven felt the satisfaction of a case closed wash over him like a mediocre shower. "Well," Martha Chambers said, finishing her tea, "I suppose this means the butterfly smuggling ring is finished. Good riddance." She stood to leave, then paused. "Oh, and Miss Mystique, your husband owed the Conservation Society a substantial donation. I'll send you the invoice." Jane fainted one last time, for old time's sake. To be continued. Author's note for Chapter 4. This chapter is dedicated to butterflies everywhere. You beautiful, smuggleable creatures. Also to my editor, who doesn't exist, which explains